The ancient kingdom of Macedon was the dominant power of Hellenistic Greece. Its glory was carved by King Philip II and his son, the greatest conqueror of all, Alexander the Great. However, before it rose to prominence, going back to the Archaic Age, Macedonia was just a small rural kingdom at the very edge of the Greek world. Its earliest historically attested monarch was a king named Perdiccas, who reigned in the 7th century BC. However, the kingdom itself predates this period, as it was already known to the earliest Greek poets, such as Hesiod, whose works are dated to the 8th century. Hesiodic epic poem known as the Ehoiai, or the Catalogue of Women, offers perhaps the earliest mention of Macedonia, tying it to an eponymous hero named Macedon. Macedonia the country was named after Macedon, the son of Zeus and Theia, daughter of Deucalion. And she became pregnant, and bore to thunder-loving Zeus 2 sons, Magnus and Macedon the horse-lover, those who dwelt in mansions around Pieria and Olympus. Such mythological account was a common theme among the ancient Greek polities, many of which traced their origins to the eponymous rulers of the heroic age. Homer himself, on the other hand, makes no mention of Macedonia while referring to the area in the context of the Trojan War timeline. Instead, the regions of Pieria and Emathia constituted the area to the north of Mount Olympus and were inhabited by non-Hellenic tribes, such as Brigis and Thracians. A small district of Macedon instead existed by the Pindus Mountains, in what would later become Upper Macedonia, and was likely the original place of the Macedonian tribal origins. Both linguistically and culturally, Macedonians were most closely related to the neighboring Epirot tribes, such as Molossians and Thesprotians. All of these tribes spoke varieties of the northwestern Greek dialect and had rather similar tribal structure. In both Epirus and Macedonia, a council of elders called the Peliganes existed and assisted the tribal king, titled Basileus. It is apparent that at some point, early Macedonians moved into Pieria and Emathia, expelled the local Brigian and Thracian tribes, and founded their own kingdom, centered around the cities of Aigai and Pella. According to the Macedonians themselves, they traced their origins to semi-legendary kings of the Greek Dark Ages, the founding ruler being an Argive prince named Karanos. According to the ancient tradition, Karanos was either a son or a descendant of a Heraclid Argive king, Temenos. Temenos and his brothers were direct descendants of legendary hero Heracles. They defeated the final Mycenaean king Tisamenus and subsequently divided Peloponnese among themselves. Temenos received Argos, where he started his own Heraclid dynastic branch. Upon his death, the Argive throne was contested between his successors. It is here that we have several different versions of the story. Karanos is placed either as a son or grandson of Temenos, or otherwise his descendant, perhaps several generations further down the line. Considering that the ancient Macedonian tradition places only up to 2 additional kings between Perdiccas in the 7th century and Karanos, it is unlikely that Karanos could have been an actual son of Temenos, who himself is placed at about 1100 BC. Whatever the case may be, Karanos was an Argive prince, and was considered a descendant of King Temenos, and thus a descendant of Heracles himself. However, he was apparently not a successor to the throne, which prompted him to eventually leave Argolis and look for a new land to settle. Karanos gathered his companions and went to the Oracle of Delphi to seek advice on where he should go. In Delphi, Pythia conveyed him the message. "You should find your kingdom there, where you will find plenty of game and domestic animals. Karanos and his followers proceeded north. According to Macedonian historian Marcias of Pella, Karanos and a large band of Greeks arrived to Amathia. The weather was terrible, a downpour of rain combined with dense fog. There, he saw a herd of goats running for shelter, moving towards a nearby city called Edessa. The Greeks interpreted this as a sign of Oracle's prophecy. Edessa had to be taken. As the army moved towards the city, the local inhabitants were largely unaware of what was happening. Rain was heavy and visibility was low, conditions well utilized by Karanos and his men. Karanos was able to storm the city and conquer it with little resistance. There, he founded his own dynasty, named the Argeads after Argos, his place of origin. Another slightly different version of the myth is later recounted by Eusebius. This version places the events at a time before the first recorded Olympiad, which was in 776 BC. According to the story, Karanos similarly moved from Argos with his army and went towards the territory of Macedonia. At this time, the ruler of the tribe of Oresti was at war with his neighbors, the Eordii. King of Orestes then applied to Karanos for aid, promising to give him half of the territory if Eordii is defeated. The deal was made, and Karanos joined the Oresti, helping them secure the victory. On their part, the Orestians kept their promise, and Karanos was given his part of the territory. This presumably included the district of Macedon and spanned to Edessa and the land where Aigai, soon to be the capital of the kingdom, would be founded. Karanos reportedly reigned for 30 years, in a time which would, based on the Macedonian king list, correspond to the 8th century BC. According to Pausanias, Karanos was the king who abolished erection of victory monuments in Macedonia. The so-called Tropaion was a monument which displayed an armor of the defeated adversary, commemorating victory in battle. It was typically constructed out of a living tree or in the shape of a tree and placed on the side of the battlefield as tribute to the gods. Pausanias recounts that Karanos fought a war against a neighboring ruler called Chryseos, in which the Macedonian force was victorious. In a typical Argive fashion, Karanos set up a tropaion on the battlefield, commemorating his victory and further humiliating his defeated foes. However, the monument was soon disturbed by a lion from Olympus, which then vanished without a trace. The Macedonian king interpreted this as a bad omen, but also wanting to avoid the underlying hatred of the numerous non-Greek neighbors, decided to forbid the practice of tropaions among the Macedonians. He proclaimed a rule that no king of Macedon, neither himself or any of his successors, should set up tropaions if they were to ever gain the goodwill of their neighbors. When it comes to Aigai, the original capital of the kingdom, it is said to have been founded by either Karanos himself or by his descendant Perdiccas. Either way, the kingdom of Macedonia was thus founded, bordering the barbarian lands of the Brigis, Thracians, Paeonians and Illyrians on one side, and the Hellenic polities on another. We will continue episodes on the early history of Macedon in future, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. This was WanaxTV.